Welcome everyone back to Broker's Playbook. We are in a brand new season with a very familiar face. Miss Camille Moore from Third Eye Insights is joining me yet again at your request. She's going to be sharing her insight and her latest wins, which are wins for our industry specifically, as a lot of her client base counts on her absolute guidance in winning with their marketing, with their branding, and with her strategy to acquire better and more clients, resulting, of course, into a bigger brand and naturally more deals. She's also going to be sharing with us in 3 more segments, specifically small business tips for everybody to be able to just start today on the easiest and most effective marketing strategies, I suppose, or branding strategies, as she's gonna really get into today, that can be implemented right away. Camille Moore, welcome back for the 3rd time. You're the very first guest to be on here 3 times. Welcome back to Broker's Playbook.
It's so awesome. I like for how far too my personal brand has gone since the first episode. I feel like we should do like a cut montage of even like seeing my
where we were and where we're at.
Yeah, we are now. It's so awesome to be back. I'm really excited for where Broker's Playbook is going to, and everything that you've done with your personal brand and the branding of Broker's Playbook. Kudos.
Well, thank you first and foremost, but you've had quite a bit to do with that. You are currently involved in my personal brand, and maybe we'll get to that. But what I want to do, just right off the hopper, you said something to me earlier when we were having coffee, and I was like, let's cover off some really good marketing tips, what's really impactful right now.
Yeah.
And you stopped me and you said, I want you to just repeat it.
Marketing is dead. Branding is everything.
So I want you to really define. So you, in all honesty, she's explained this to me because I said, what are you talking about right now? Like what is happening? And she explained it to me, but I definitely want you to cover it off because I think that's a very strong point.
Yeah.
And it's the truth.
Yeah. It's tough to answer simply because marketing is a part of the entire equation, but it speaks more to sales, which is the end of the funnel. And by focusing only on the end of the funnel, you're not investing in your brand. And it's a really easy way to burn cash, right? And I find more and more business owners are, they're strapped for time, they're strapped for resources, they're strapped for focus, and they want to increase sales. But in feeling busy and overwhelmed, it's easier to focus on something like Google AdWords or like straight ads in general. And you become fixated on like 2-dimensional metrics where you're seeing like, you're looking for a direct ROI. And that's not an investment in yourself. And it's not where we are in the digital age. Like,
it's the definition of a transactional approach
it doesn't
to
work.
a brand.
Especially when you're a service provider, because when you get into like the 2D selling, which is like the PPC or I call it kind of like the click focus marketing, you're not investing in your brand and you're not staying relevant. And when you stop staying relevant, it's when your brand begins to die. And as a service provider, you have to stay relevant because the time in which a past customer, a future customer, or someone that could be a customer, they're not connecting with you because you're not investing in branding.
Yeah. And you're saying this, like, that's when your brand starts to die. And there's that entire demographic of business owners that it's their very first day in business.
Yeah.
And if they start, so in real estate specifically, because that's the world that I've been in for almost 20 years, you see agents coming into the business, they've saved up some money, 6 months worth of life to get going. And they did this because they asked us to what they should do.
Yep.
And somebody told them that.
Yep.
That somebody that was guiding their decision making may or may not be a successful advice giving
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
colleague.
Yeah.
And to tell somebody that they need to spend $5,000 a month on a business they know nothing about, just starting out, to get started in building an audience by doing PPC, that's not building an audience.
No, it's actually not building anything.
It's not building anything.
Like once the money is gone in Google AdWords or in doing direct meta ads, the money is gone. When you're investing in a brand, you're investing in the future. I talk about this all the time, the rule of 7, right? It takes 7 times on average for what a product or service represents and for the brand to hold real estate in your mind. So when you're investing in a brand, this happens with me. Like when I have clients come in off of TikTok or off of Instagram, they never see one video and decide to call me. They've watched several over time. And that's why consistency in your branding message matters, because if I post a piece of content every day, nobody is seeing all of my content. So by investing in consistency and casting a wider net that makes sense for my brand, there's a higher likelihood that someone is going to see my content at least 7 times to form a consistent idea of what my brand represents. And that's why marketing is dead. Because when you're focused on only in like the end of the funnel ad, you're not investing in the longevity of what a brand is, which is it's an idea, it's a universe, it's a concept that needs time and repetition and consistency to build.
Well, people really confuse, and listen, the world is confusing. It's a big business. Real estate has so many components to it.
Totally.
From execution, from making calls, from nurturing database.
Timeline of the sale.
So everything about real estate that people think is easy, it's actually one of the toughest businesses in the world.
Totally.
And I've had exposure to many. I have a very diverse business background, but real estate specifically, you have to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is, I'm not going to speak so much to the middle as much as I'm going to speak to the seasoned, successful agent that has hundreds of past clients.
Yep.
And I also want to speak to the brand new agent.
Yep.
Because that's where I see the most mistakes.
Yeah.
The middle, the consistent middle, has something, they're working, they're doing their thing, they can always improve upon, but it's the Simeons of the world that make big mistakes. Because I have a budget. And how I blow that budget on my marketing and or branding matters. So I want us to really hone in on that.
But you also have an opinion when you're at that top level, and your opinion isn't always right. And your opinion can also hold you back.
After this break, I'm going to dive into a seasoned agent, a successful agent's branding strategy, not marketing strategy. What I have implemented with Camille for the last year has yielded tremendous results, and we're going to get into that strategy and how you can implement something very similar in your business and grow. Welcome back, everyone. I am here with Camille Moore, and we're getting into the skinny of it now. She's going to tell us a little bit about her business and how she's shot her personal brand into the stratosphere. She's done the same for us. Camille, get into it.
I think a good place to start is identifying where most people are at, right? The people who are the best at what they do are the worst at marketing themselves. And that was what we faced a year ago. And it really comes down to the good enough principle. You're successful in what you do, you're busy, and the best is always busy. It's re-looking at how you prioritize time for an unknown possibility in future. And that's what I also talk about with opportunity cost, right? Is because you're busy, because your stuff is good enough, you don't invest in feeling like you need to take it to the next level. And that's where I really focus my time, energy, and attention on personal branding, because it's everything for 2024. It's not going anywhere. It's the biggest trend that's going to be, it's transforming all industries right now.
How do you define that good enough? Is that complacency that you see in people's businesses with their marketing, saying, I can't put any more time into that, and now they're missing out on that whole elite level of branding?
Well, when things are good enough, you're not focused on investing in an intangible potential outcome, right? Like you don't focus on rebranding yourself or doing a new website or hiring a higher caliber of professional when your business is stable or if it's growing at a standard rate of 1 or 2%. But the problem is two things. One, you slowly become outdated, and the cost to then modernize yourself is much greater than having a constant focus and investment on yourself if you're consistently focused. But the other problem is also not realizing what you're missing. So you start to get outlapped by especially younger competition. When you're typically the best in what you do, you're at a different point in your life where you've put in the years. But it's harder to show those years you've put in the digital age if you're not focused on constantly investing yourself in your personal brand. So the good enough principle can affect you in different ways, but it's often because it's like a relationship. You stay in relationships longer than you should because it's good enough, right? It's when things get really bad. And then that's the problem I face is people come to me almost when it's too late. I'm like, yeah, well, you haven't had a website redone in 20 years. Like this is going to cost you $100,000. And they're like, like opposed to constantly investing in themselves,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have gotten that far behind. And like that's the problem in the digital age. So it's the good enough principle really affects all of us because we're busy at doing what we're doing. We're not focused on that potential future that we don't know.
And staying connected with progress.
Yes. Well, and especially with ROI, right? Like a lot of business owners, they come back to ROI. What is my return on investment going to be if I redo my website or if I start creating consistent content? The problem is I can't tell you what the ROI is going to be, but it's a complete transformation in what that potential future could be. For example, even in my own personal story, it took me 8 months to get my first video at 1 million views. If it hadn't been my own team, I probably would have fired my own agency because it took 8 months to get a viral video. And by the time that video went viral, I would have anticipated as a business owner that I would have gotten back my investment. But the phones weren't ringing off the hook. What it did is it provided that first primer of where now 1 million people knew my name, they knew my face, and they had an idea of what my message represented. But then creating content consistently and putting out videos 5-7 days a week past that first video is what started to forge a connection within people that I'm still reaping the benefit from. That's why I was booked on one of the biggest podcasts, The Skinny Confidential. She reached out and her literal words were, "You kept popping up on my feed. My team was sending your videos back and forth to each other. I finally decided to reach out." If I had fired my agency 3 months after that initial video, I would have never been on a podcast that transformed my life. So it's when you think about ROI, good enough, and opportunity cost, you don't know what investing in your brand could get you, but it's what you have to do in order to stay relevant.
So I have a very similar story that I can share as a result of this content creation, which is the only way now. Like as far as I'm concerned, there's a million things. You can go in newspapers that nobody buys. You can go into magazines that don't exist on the racks. You can do a million different things. But unless you're on digital magazines, unless you are in digital newspapers, unless you're on a digital podcast, people consume their information from their phone, from their iPad, from a tablet, from a PC, digitally. Full stop.
And the whole world. And you have no idea whose eyes are falling on that screen.
So specifically to that, we started this very podcast in May of 2020.
Yeah.
And similarly, it took a year before we even found our own voice, let alone get 1 million views. We didn't have our own voice sorted. Everything takes time. But in that time, the consistency built an audience amazingly quick on a new platform that came out that year called Clubhouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clubhouse came, Clubhouse went. We are still here because we evolved to the next platform and to the next platform.
And what is that worth?
It's worth everything we are today. Because everywhere we go.
And you can't put that on a balance sheet.
You cannot. But the balance sheet is a direct outcome of this entire brand.
And it's a joy of life. It's who you're exposed to. It's the kinds of conversations you have. It's the confidence you exude in your day-to-day transactions. Like there's a different level of FU confidence that you get when you're digitally verified by thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of people. And you can't quite articulate it until you've lived it.
I couldn't agree with you more. What I want to do is I want you to give the Brokers Playbook community some advice.
Yeah.
And that advice is, it's something that you gave me. Many have given me similar advice, but you specifically took it to a different level. And that was the intent of thought leadership in a certain space.
Yeah.
You saw something in me that you felt this message really resonates good with your audience. This is what I think you should do. Not for my own message, but for the industry. What does the real estate broker, a real estate consultant, because that's where I'm taking the industry.
Yeah.
Nobody's selling, at the open house on Saturday. Like, we're talking, these people are in people's living rooms. People are smarter and have more access to information than ever.
Yeah.
My team are consultants. I want the whole industry to be consultants that are validated and they can give great advice.
Yeah.
How do they portray their image? How do they build their brand and speak to it?
You brought up so many good points.
Start anywhere.
This is everything right now. And if you're going to listen to any part of the podcast, let it be this. We are in a world where we no longer buy from faceless brands. We learn, we consume education, and we are entertained by human beings. Often in our professional services or being a professional period, we tend to suffer from a scarcity mentality. There's lots of realtors creating videos. There's lots of brokers creating videos. There's lots of marketers creating videos. And because there is a lot of people that are creating content, you allow yourself the excuse to not invest in a personal brand. But the only way to win in the digital age is to invest in thought leadership, because your consult happens before the consult. And that's what most people miss, is that they're expecting or waiting for these amazing conversations to happen one-on-one. But it's a zero-sum game, because you're only able to have a conversation with one person. When I create a piece of content, I'm having a conversation with 100,000 people. Right. And 100,000 people can decide, this chick ain't for me, this chick is my person, or it can just sit in their mind.
That 100,000 could be 100 billion for all that matters, because once the content exists, it's out there and anybody can reach the content, anybody can consume it, interpret it their own way, and
decide to act.
And decide what they want out of that content.
Yes.
Do I want to reach out to this person? Do I want to work with this person? Camille, I think you really nailed it, and we're going to go on break. But coming back from break, I really want to hone in on best practices for establishing and creating something intentional. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back, everyone. I am sitting with Camille Moore, and we're really in deep right now as to what actually works in 2024, what's going to work into 2025 from a branding perspective. And before we went to break, we were really deep into implementable thought leadership.
Yeah.
To start off this last segment, take me through define thought leadership for any business, define thought leadership for real estate.
Yep.
Where do we start?
So what thought leadership is capturing and providing a platform for your unique expertise. So Simeon Papiolius' thought leadership is very different than if Camille Moore was a realtor, right? Or I was in real estate. And that's where people don't realize that they have something interesting and unique to say. You have your own past experiences, your own unique life experiences, and your own expertise and journey through your professional career that is relevant and will resonate with your unique tribe. So all thought leadership is about is building your own tribe by sharing your unique expertise. So for my personal brand, I am a voracious reader. I love to read, and I'm reading books outside of just marketing and branding. And I create webs. I connect my passion with beauty. I connect my passion with fashion. I connect my love for understanding the psychology of branding and growing up in a lower income home and growing into working with some of the biggest brands in the world, that is really, people really like my perspective, and it's mine. Nobody else can have that. And that's what thought leadership is about, is creating a brand that's unique to who you are. And where people get stuck and they get lost is they're trying to be something that they're not. It's harder to be yourself online, like genuinely who you are online, than this like refined, faked, polished version of yourself. You'll see a lot of people when they go to create content, if they're doing it, like their voice changes, the words they use change, like it's not them. That doesn't work. So thought leadership is capturing what you do as a professional when the consult happens, when you're meeting that customer face to face, and how you run your job, but just putting it online. Like that's all it is. We can get into the strategies, how to approach different socials and how to execute the brand. But what thought leadership is putting who you are as an expert that's for hire online, because that's how people find you today.
So I found the entire vertical fascinating.
Yeah.
I was already a thought leader and didn't know it.
Totally.
When we met.
Totally.
But when we consulted and we looked at it, what my goals were and how we were going to get there, we really honed in on specific items, and we're doing that again as we speak.
Yeah.
I believe next week I'm meeting with one of your consultants to really hone in on a specific strategy that's going to help us hit a specific goal. Now, instead of like, I'm speaking in circles because what I don't want to do is confuse anybody watching as to thought leadership for me is not, because you mentioned this, it's not the same as thought leadership for you. And what I mean by that is you have your own goals. If you are in Edmonton, Alberta, and you're looking to take market share in just outside in Sherwood Park, you're looking to take over Sherwood Park, your thought leadership brand has to be relevant to what's happening in Sherwood Park. You need to know everything about that town. You need to speak about the town. You need to speak about its future and why somebody has to stand benefit. How do they win?
Okay, you bring up a really great point, and I even want to further what you're saying too.
But am I interpreting it right myself? So somebody in Sherwood Park needs to be a thought leader in Sherwood Park.
Yes.
Somebody here, like where I am, what I'm trying to do.
What you're saying is you can have a thought, your strategy should be tied to your goals. And your goals can and should be niche, right? So if you're wanting to focus on selling a local community, own that community, become the site of information. And I do that with experts. So if you're, for example, like I am selling Sherwood Park, that is my mandate. I want to become the #1 realtor in Sherwood Park. Your content needs to get out of just real estate.
That's
right? Your content needs to be like the best places to eat, the best places to get your hair done.
You are Sherwood Park.
Become that on the internet. But when we look at a strategy like yours, and this is what should excite you about thought leadership, is that your strategy can evolve as your investment in yourself evolves. So when I started creating content, my message and my mandate for what my potential was is very different than where it is today. And that comes with the unknown. It comes with investing in yourself and growing and allowing the internet to provide you feedback and data point for what's the most interesting for them, right? So you can focus, for you as a perfect example, you had PR and success as being a realtor, and your personal brand evolved as you developed Broker's Playbook and as that changed and as that created a voice. So you were able to invest in a future potential that you were unaware of at the time, that only comes from investing in a personal brand. But to take it back to what you're saying, starting small is a great place to start.
Starting is a great place to start.
No, and that's the two pieces to that. Like one, I get asked all the time. It's the same thing in real estate. You know, when was the best time to buy a home? Well, 20 years ago. Second best time is today. Same thing with a personal brand. It takes so long for you to get to this point of confidence. And don't get it twisted. Like creating content sucks. It sucks. And because it sucks, nobody does it. So be prepared to not be perfect. For the first video, the first 5 videos, the first 7 videos to feel like a chore. You can put off.
I remember our first videos, and I remember our equipment. And
It's painful.
Not only is it painful, it's comedy to watch now.
Yeah.
But if we didn't do it, we wouldn't be here.
But it was also better than what people were putting out then.
Correct.
Because the best people's egos hold them back from becoming seen as being the best online.
The biggest problem as to why creating content sucks is because So I don't think creating content sucks now
No, I love
because
it.
we're doing exactly what we want to be doing, which is discussing and building audiences, building confidence in people. You're changing people's lives right now,
Every day.
every day. So I'm going to go down and correct that statement. Content creation sucks when you still haven't figured out to be your authentic self.
It sucks
When you're
until
trying
it
to
doesn't suck.
Correct. Because you still believe when you're starting out that you're not good enough.
Yes.
You believe that you need to be like Simeon or like Camille or like Jason or like Ryan Serhant. What? No, you don't.
Yep.
Your audience is not the same.
Yep. Yeah.
When you have 500, 700, 1,500 followers, the average of people out there, you're serving the 300, 500, 1,500 people that you know.
Yep.
So you pretending to be somebody you're not is not only foolish and counterproductive, you're suffering for nothing.
Yeah. And that's a great point. Aim for 500 views and aim to impress those 500 people, because that's 500 more than you wouldn't have been able to meet today.
Nor could you call 500 people today.
And let that 500 compound. Also be at peace. Like if you're focusing on only a small town in Edmonton, 500 focus views in that area is very different than being an international branding expert. But also, to your point, when I first started creating content, I wasn't working with Van Cleef and Yeti, and I didn't have brands like Cosmo calling me for interviews. I was a 20-something-year-old semi-professional that ran an agency that was focused on people, and I just created content.
But you started.
I started, and I had imposter syndrome. I felt like an idiot most days. I hated most of the content. But the reason why I did it is because I was being paid by people and I was telling them to do something that I wasn't doing. So I started to do it. And by doing it, to your point, I now, every day is a gift. I'm connecting with people. I've got opportunities that I did not think that I was good enough for. And a part of me some days still looks back and to be like, holy shit, you blink and your life changes. So, but focus on it being small. Focus on impressing 25 people in those first views.
I don't know if it took me 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but we cracked Miss Camille Moore open on Broker's Playbook, where passion and being yourself and not being afraid to say what you just said, because I think the reality of business for everyone, every single person, every single business person has felt what she just said. Imposter syndrome, faking it, lying to yourself,
Being judged by people you know.
being judged by people you know, such as your own family, making fun of you. But if you don't do it, you will never understand the real cost. I hope this was empowering for every single person to understand the importance of getting started in thought leadership and investing in your personal brand, investing in your business brand, and how they can coexist and be successful together. Camille Moore, I want to thank you so much for coming on to Broker's Playbook. And of course, please remember, Broker's Playbook community members will have access to her exclusive playbook that gives you everything you need to get started in building your personal brand above and beyond the content we just shared, as well as about 30 minutes of some pretty exclusive talks. We'll see you inside the community. If you're not in there, join now.